Hi everyone, this is Aries Moon Girl, and this is another series about 3 things that I dislike about your sign. And as I said, I'm doing my favorite signs first. I'll continue with the other ones afterwards. And today is Sagittarius. I know, what can you dislike about the Sagittarius guy? Well, there are a few things. For those of you that have seen my videos before, I have videos on Sagittarius where I tell you that my husband is a Sagittarius. In the meantime, he's my ex-husband. But Sagittarius, if you were to pick one sign that I personally consider the best sign, it would still be Sagittarius. So I'm not influenced by this. I find them to be amazing. It's I was telling to one of my Sagittarius friends, it's like walking in a Disney park all day, every day. Which, by the way, Walt Disney was a Sagittarius. But it's a wonderful ride to have Sagittarius in your life. It's like a ride in an amusement park. It's extremely fun and playful and joyful and beautiful. But they have a few flaws, and I'm gonna talk about them now. So, are you ready? Let's go into the 3 things that I dislike about Sagittarius. The first thing which I dislike about Sagittarius is the fact that they go overboard with things. Maybe I should have started with why they go overboard with things, but this will be number 2. So watch out for that. But the one thing which I dislike about them is that they tend to do too much of one thing. Like, Sagittarius don't have realistic expectations of their boundaries. They don't have real boundaries when it comes to what they can do and what they cannot. So many times they go overboard with drinking, eating, anything that's usually for pleasurable things, but anything that kind of is enjoyment for them in the moment or a challenge. And they don't assess really well their boundaries, or, like, this is what I should do, this is where I should stop, this is what I shouldn't be doing. They just get lost in the moment and they go all out, and their all out is so much. And one thing about Jupiter energy is, like, it's so beautiful and so pure, but then when it gets into too much, it can become toxic. So this is where they get addictions, or they get exhausted, or they lose their energy and they are not who they were anymore, because they lose themselves in this outside pleasures. Like, Jupiter goes for them, and they it's not very constrained. It's not a lot of constraint. I'm a Pisces, so I'm Jupiter as well. I don't like constraint at all. But I also don't like to go overboard and lose control. And many times with Sagittarius, not all of them, it depends what other combinations they have, but they lose control of themselves in something, and it becomes toxic. It becomes an addiction, and it becomes it becomes too much, and it's not for their own good. So they kind of don't put their overall interests above the momentary enjoyment. And at one point you look at them, I don't know, 5-10 years in, and you're like, oh my God, where's that beautiful, happy person? You have just lost yourself in different types of vices, addictions, even overworking, or you've lost yourself. You didn't contain that energy. You felt like there's unlimited boundaries, and you're gonna let it out, and you're gonna party forever, and you're gonna work to death, and you're gonna you're gonna do everything that's pleasurable now. And then you look and you're like, oh, that's not very preserved. You look actually kind of drained of energy. So I have seen this with Sagittarius, and I always feel like, oh, but you just should have said stop like 10 months ago, and then everything would have been all right. No one would have been upset or disappointed. You should have just created those boundaries. So, okay, the second point that I dislike about Sagittarius is kind of the same. It seems like the same. So the first one is they go too much out and they go for addictions and all of this, and they just do too much of things that are unhealthy in the end if you do them too much. And the second one is boundaries, which I mentioned actually as the first point. And this is why they do the first point, because they lack clear boundaries. And here I'm going to talk about the aspect that has to do with people. They lack clear boundaries with people as well. So they want to make people happy. Sagittarius really want to make people happy. So then they become kind of many times not victims, and also they are a mobile sign. We mobile signs, we go along with people. We're not cardinal to be like very stubborn. We're not fixed so we can stick to our guns and not change at all. We just go along. And that beautiful Sagittarius energy, if it enters in a field of a person that kind of manipulates that, with them lacking boundaries, they will just end up not being a doormat, but being, like being manipulated by the other person into doing whatever the other person wants them to do, into restricting their freedom, which is horrible for a Sagittarius, like to have their freedom restricted into I don't know, into becoming less than they are. It can also be, I'll give you guys a controversial example here, and you can beat me to it, you can but usually I see Virgos with Sagittarius, and Virgos like to contain that energy somehow. Like they are mobile, but they kind of like to, put Sagittarius in their box. So I'm gonna give you one of the most well-known examples of Beyonce and Jay-Z. Beyonce is amazing. Jay-Z couldn't do better than her. But at the same time, you're wondering, is he not a bit, in her shadow or restricted, or, hasn't he lost a bit of his... I've seen them both in concert, and I realize he's really he has a presence that just fills up the audience. Like he has that Jupiter. Jupiter is larger than life. And I feel like, through channeling their energy, Sagittarius sometimes, they give their power to other people. Of course, then he rebels and he cheats on her and horrible stuff and all of this. But, giving their power to other people, lacking boundaries and letting other people do what they want with them, until one point when they rebel and they're like, oh no, this is not gonna work out. I'm gonna rebel against this and I'm gonna do that. But it's so late in, and you're like, did you not notice that your boundaries were violated 2-3 years ago? Did you not notice that this wasn't a healthy relationship or a healthy pattern or a healthy behavior? Or, did you not notice all of this and could have said stop? I'm a Pisces, I also don't do this, but mobile signs are weak in this point. But definitely just try to set for yourself what your boundaries are. I know seeing with everything with rose-colored glasses and seeing people for how wonderful they are, this kind of makes it, you don't want to mess with that. But at the same time, if you don't set your boundaries, then how are you gonna know what you need in comparison to what other people need of you? So take back your power. That's my advice for this point for you. The third point, it's a bit of a contradiction to the second point, but I think one happens after the other, and that is you become flaky, or you become irresponsible, or you become, like I said, the example with Jay-Z, like cheating on Beyonce and all of this, you kind of under the rug do your own thing because you delegate your power to other people, and under the rug somehow you kind of distance yourself from some people. I've noticed many Sagittarius that are not good in staying in touch with old friends because they just get caught up in the moment. Like they are living in the present moment, but they just caught up in the present moment and lose contact with their old friends, or they just they just, I don't know, they flake on people or are not as responsive as they should be. The third point is kind of a bit of a contradiction to the second point, but actually I think it's a conclusion of what happens if you delegate your power to other people and you don't have any boundaries. This is where you kind of escape and flake out on people, or are, you know, like are not as dependable. You disappear from people's lives, you go wild, you lose responsibility. And this I think happens because you've sensed that your boundaries are being trespassed, so you're just gonna do your own thing under the rug. And also there are a lot of Sagittarius that live so much in the moment, that enjoy the moment so much that they kind of lose touch with what they know already. So maybe with their group of friends, old friends, maybe with their family, maybe not necessarily lose touch, but I have those Sagittarius friends where you're like, oh, we were so close and we would still be, but we just don't take the time to write each other or to be in each other's lives as much. That's also my fault as a Pisces, but I've noticed this with Sagittarius. It's not like, you know, like that dependable friend. I don't know, that's maybe who's the most dependable friend? I think Aries are pretty good at following up until they get lost into someone totally, but you know, like very dependable. Virgos are great dependable friends in this case, but Sagittarius kind of gets lost in flakiness, and they are trying to do things behind other people's backs when they are restricted, and at that point, you know, like they kind of lose other people's trust because they didn't say what they wanted, they didn't say what they wanted to do, they just went ahead and did it as an escapism mode. They didn't, you know, like put in the effort to kind of explain to other people and make them adjust to them. They just kind of escaped those people. So I think that's the danger with Jupiter in general, but with Sagittarius as well. And I'm curious if you guys agree with all these 3 points. Any Sagittarius, write me down below. Any experience with Sagittarius, write me down below. I'm curious to hear about it. And yeah, I definitely love this sign. It's a walk in the park. It's very beautiful. It's really lovely. But also the whole point of the video was to kind of give them points on how to improve their own lives, because I think in the end it will benefit them more than it would benefit other people. Until next time, I'm Aries Moon Girl. I care about the stars, but most of all I care about you, and this is why I do these videos.